We would like to welcome those of you here at the Slyman Theater, downtown New Iberia, to our forum for the candidates seeking the office of mayor for the city of New Iberia. I'm Russ Cantrell. I'll be your moderator for tonight's forum. Tonight's forum is sponsored by the Greater Iberia Chamber of Commerce, the Daily Iberian, and Leadership Iberia. Before we begin, we'd like to make a couple of brief announcements. Tonight's sponsors wish to remind you that the last day to register to vote for the November 8th election is going to be October 11th, and early voting runs from October 25th to November the 1st. Election day is November the 8th. Also, the Chamber will be posting the forums to their YouTube channel at youtube.com/goodnewsiberia. At this time, I would like to introduce our candidates. All candidates in this race were invited to participate. Those in attendance tonight are Mr. Freddie Decourt, Mr. Roy Cruz III, and Mr. Stephen Stansbury. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for their opening statement. We will then ask a series of questions, which each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer, unless otherwise noted. Each candidate has also been given 2 rebuttal cards tonight that he can use to take a 60-second comment on something the other candidate has said during their answer. Those candidates wishing to use the rebuttal card will hold up their card after the other candidate has answered his question, and when recognized, will get 1 minute to offer their additional thoughts. However, the candidates should be selective about using these cards because when their rebuttal card has been used, that's it. If the candidate wishes to use his rebuttal card, he should just hold it up to where we can see. To assist the candidates in keeping time, we have a timekeeper and timing light situated down front. Candidates, when your time begins, the green light will come on. When you have 15 seconds left, the yellow light will come on. And when your time is up, the red light will come on. At that time, you must finish your sentence. If that takes more than a few seconds, the buzzer will sound so that you know you must stop. Due to the limits of time and to maintain a fair atmosphere, we ask that all the audience hold your applause and comments. All the questions I will ask tonight were predetermined. Questions were solicited from the public, and then an independent panel reviewed the questions submitted and came up with those that are to be asked tonight. The panel members selecting the questions for this forum were Jonathan Norris, Marty Harrell, Rachel Segura, Gary Colden, Kevin Romero, Will Chapman, Janet Falk, and myself. At this time, we'll start the opening statements. Earlier we drew for the starting order, and we will start with Mr. Decourt and continue from our left to right. Mr. Decourt?
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking the Chamber, Leadership Iberia, the Daily Iberian for putting this forum on. I'd also like to thank my 2 opponents, Mr. Stansbury for being a career teacher and for some kind of way still wanting to give to his community even more. To Mr. Cruz, a man that I just met, thank you for moving back to our community. Thank you for wanting to be involved because so many people have left our community. It's my pledge to both of you tonight that if I'm successful in this race, that my door will be open. I need your help. I need every one of you's help out here and at home listening to pull this place together. You know, for too long, we've worried and had local politicians worrying about who supported them, who gave them money, who was their opponent. You know, it's time to stop that. It's time to come together as New Iberians and pull this place forward. Tonight, you're going to hear about the tools that I bring to the table. I didn't do this alone. You know, I've had a lot of help along the way. I've had a lot of opportunities, and any one of these projects I talk about were not completely done by myself. Please don't think so. But I've been fortunate to run a family business, to own that business, to be there for 34 years, really my whole life. We've done complex construction projects that had to be on time and in budget. I've had 8 years of public service as the Mayor Pro Tem, where I got to do some amazing things. I got to chair the Blue Ribbon Commission on Law Enforcement. I got to found the Art and Cultural Commission. We found solutions for our open container ordinances. We found a solution to the TIF district when I was running against the parish president that we negotiated with. I've got 25 years of doing many, many community projects, from the boardwalk to Church Alley.
Next, we have Mr. Cruz.
I'm Roy Cruz III, Libertarian candidate for mayor. Politically, I'm a classical liberal. My style of governance will be fiscally disciplined and socially inclusive, highlighting personal responsibility and voluntary cooperation. Visit rbc3.net for more info. As a 14-year-old, I had to move here with family from Homa, but now I'm a New Iberian by choice. This is where people have treated me like a native son, and this is where I make my home. Roughly half of my 40 work years were spent in the private and half in the public sector. Experience as a fraud investigator and as a retail manager will prove helpful to a hands-on administrator. When the people lose faith in governmental institutions, it's time for change. My platform calls for the rebirth of the City Police Department as we regain control of the largest item in the budget and reclaim our streets. Right away, I'll ask the City Council to cut the regressive sales tax burden, leaving more money in our pockets. Over time, I hope to replace occupational taxes that chase businesses out of town with gaming revenue that will keep people who voluntarily choose to play in town. By cutting the number of city departments from 15 to 4, we will streamline supervision, reducing cost. Kindly visit my website at rbc3.net. Please vote for me, Roy Cruz. Thanks to the Chamber, Leadership Iberia, and the Daily Iberian for sponsoring this forum and for inviting me.
Thank you. Mr. Stansbury, your opening statement.
Thank you. I am Stephen Stansbury, a lifelong citizen of New Iberia. I am seeking the office of mayor because I wish to serve the community that I love. I have studied government since high school, college, and history. I started my lifelong involvement with politics at age 10, handing out face cards for Alan Dagg at age 10 with his son John, and have gone on since. Many times my students said I should run for mayor. Now I have the opportunity to serve my community. I want to grow New Iberia. There is no reason we do not grow as the other cities around us have. We have a rich heritage and we have a quality of life which is ideal. One of my ancestors, Juan Miguez, founded this town with the others. My family has been members of the community for more than 2 centuries, growing New Iberia. I've been in real estate with my father for 42 years before his passing. We need to encourage development. We need to encourage new housing and older established neighborhoods revisited, invite new families to move back in. We also need to encourage new businesses to locate here, which I have tried to do and do try to do. For too long, I've seen our students, our children leave. It's time for them to come home with their families. I thank you. I humbly ask for your support very much, and I also thank the sponsors.
Thank you, Mr. Stansbury. For our first question, we'll start with Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz, why are you running for mayor? What are some specifics about you or your background that make you the best candidate for our mayor?
I decided to run for mayor because, frankly, I wasn't sure what the other candidates stood for. I wanted to see that there was somebody who had a libertarian or at least conservative bent in the race, idea of limited government, local sovereignty, and taking back control of the city. With regard to specifics, I've had an eclectic employment career. I've learned something from every job I've done. One of the things that I think would help me most as mayor is the time that I spent as a fraud investigator for the Department of Children and Family Services. And as a public employee, I had to be polite to everybody I dealt with. I had to listen to what they had to say. A lot of times I had to say no. And I think that is something that would be very helpful being mayor of a small city.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Stansbury, same question.
For years, I toyed with the idea of running for political office. I didn't, it seemed to have the time. I taught, I worked at a radio station. In the last 10 years, I took care of my parents. I did not have what I considered the time to be mayor. I now have the time. I now have the time to serve the community that I love. I have ideas. I have gone out and tried to search and find businesses to locate here. And I have a background in developing subdivisions with my father, and I know it can be done. I don't want to do it. I just want to see it done. I want the town to grow. I want our young people to come back and stay here and with their families and not have grandparents seeing Facebook pictures and photographs. I want to grow the city.
Thank you, Mr. Stansbury. Mr. Decourt, same question.
I come from a family of builders, hardworking, self-employed people. And I've had one challenge after another and have sought those challenges. I didn't just sit back. I diversified myself, not only to work for my family business. I've started businesses. I've been fortunate to do consulting work for the federal government, just a variety of a background. But I'm passionate about my town. I invest in my town. I bought my first building when I was 25, and I haven't quit yet, even in a bad economy. I'm passionate about this place. I want the challenge. I could stay where I'm at. I'm not retired. I'm not of retirement age. I'm 54. I need to work. But I want to do this. What I want to do is change this city. I want to see this city move forward. I'm passionate about this place. So what I want is the biggest building project of my life. Everything that I've done and everything that I've led to get to this point, I think is preparing me. I think I have the tool set. I'm not any better than my opponents. I do think I bring a different tool set. I think we all have skills, and I think that's the point of this forum, to vet out the best candidate. But I'll tell you that my business experience, my community experience, the network of people and the community projects that I have done, I can hit the ground running. I'm ready to go to work. I'm ready to take this community forward. Before we're over tonight, I think you'll see a ton of ideas that I have to bring us forward, to push us to that point that we can be, to meet our potential. I'm serious about our problems, but man, I'm serious about our potential. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Mr. Stansbury. What are the 3 biggest issues facing the city over the next 4 years, and what are your plans to address each?
One of the biggest issues is this off. One of the biggest issues that I believe faces New Iberia is growth. We have to grow. We have to find businesses that want to locate here, which I have done. I have found businesses that want to locate here, and they do want to locate here. But as was said in the previous mayoral pro tem forum, the infrastructure is lacking. So businesses look to come here, but the infrastructure does not exist. So growing the businesses. Second, growing and keeping our population, keeping our young people, keeping families here together is a priority of mine. And the other thing would be trying to maintain the budget. It is very hard. The budget has been cut tremendously, and the coffers are not coming in with a lot of money. We're facing loss of revenue. And that is something we have to address with businesses coming and also residences because of the property taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Decourt, same question.
Yes, we need to be increasingly user-friendly. You know, we got to stop being the community of no. We've all heard stories of UL, the oil center, the airport, all these things that we're going to locate here but didn't. We've heard of local developers' complaints. We've got to search for ways to be increasingly user-friendly. By being the community of how can we help you make that happen, we're going to attract people. And that's what we need to do. We've got to change our attitude. The problem's not the attitude, it's the The problem is not the attitude, it's the attitude toward the problem. And you know what we have to do? We've got to develop teamwork. Teamwork with our parish, teamwork between the city council and the mayor has been a little non-existent at times. We've got to develop that communication, develop that cooperation. We've got to come together and pull ourselves together forward. You know, we do have a shrinking tax base. We're going to have to do things to market our community. We're going to have to develop incentives for job creators. We're going to have to further develop our historic core. We've got a great downtown, and we just need to develop that even further. We're going to have to set up some economic development teams to look for ways to be more developer friendly, to attract those developers. I've already been meeting with developers. We're going to have to set up possibly a volunteer property database that lets us market our property and helps our local property owners. We're going to have to partner and seek out annexation opportunities at every turn, as long as all parties are willing. We can partner with UL. We have many opportunities, and we're going to explore them.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz?
Thank you. Three biggest issues. Number one, public safety. We need to bring back the city police department. Number two, opportunity for private jobs. There are a lot of people unemployed. There are a lot of people who have given up in New Iberia. They have skills. They're moving to other towns. They're finding jobs in other places. They're not finding jobs here. Number three, determine the best way to bring what we would call greater New Iberia into the city limits. And I think in order to do this, we don't want to take out a lasso and bring people in kicking and screaming. Find out what can we do as a city, what can we provide to people who live close to New Iberia, who we would generally think of as being in New Iberia, but they're outside the city limits. How can we find ways to entice them to want to join, to want to come in? Because when this happens, the tax base will grow, and this is a way to grow revenue without having to increase taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Stansbury?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
What are the three biggest issues? I'm sorry. I'm back to you on that one. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Decourt. We continue to hear complaints about the city's building permit and inspection process, that it is more complicated, less friendly, more difficult to manage than similar processes in neighboring communities. If you think that's not a fair assessment of the city's efforts, why not? And if you agree there are problems in this area for the city, what are they, and what would you propose to improve the perception of the city's building permit and inspection operation?
My main living for the last 34 years has been as a general contractor and a designer, working in an architectural firm and a design firm. I work all over Acadiana. Each permit department is different. Some are more inviting. Some have a little bit better steps when you come in to get your permit or your first contact. I think that first contact, you only get one chance to make a good impression. I would like to improve that first contact. I'm already working on a little brochure where you line out the steps many times. The issue is with the fire marshal. The issue is with the IBC code, but our city seems to take the hit for that. I do find that we don't define ourselves as to these are our codes and these are the state codes we're forced to handle. This is the IBC code, this is the fire marshal issue, and many times people come in, they're excited about their project, they're just looking to come get a permit and get started. Well, we're going to find a way if I have to meet with every one of them myself. I have been a developer, I've developed a ton of property here in our community as well in some other areas. I do see that some people do a better job, but it's that first impression. So for me, I think our permit people are qualified. I think we run a good department. The idea of the city taking over the parish's department has been kicked around. I'm not opposed to that. I'm opposed to working together. But I do think that we can work on our first impression and level the playing field. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, same question.
I believe permits are a problem. I don't think they're going to get any better unless we have a change in personnel in the city with the people who deal with the permits. I don't think there's any way around that.
Thank you. Mr. Stansbury, same question.
I have spoken to business people about the problem with the permit office. probably over the last 4 years. One lady, it took 3 years for her to get her little shop open. 3 years. The state was blamed, the fire marshal was blamed, this one was blamed, that one was blamed. Things were changed on them. They were told this had to be done, it was done, then it was wrong. It had to be undone. Very costly. We need to have guidelines, specific guidelines that you have to follow from the permit office. And you need to be able to go to the permit office once. Contractors have left this town. Many, many contractors have left this town, building houses in Youngsville and Broussard and Lafayette because it's easier. The permit office is easier there. And I know builders who have personally told me this, that they left because of that. And that simply they go to Youngsville, wherever, they meet once, they pay the permit fee, and then they see somebody every once in a while, but it does not take what it takes to get this done. It's got to be straightened up.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Cruz. You'll get 3 minutes to respond to this question. What is your position on law enforcement for the city? Do you favor bringing back a city police force? And if so, where does the startup money come from? Where do you find enough officers to operate it? And what are your thoughts about the cost of operation versus the contract with the current sheriff's office? If you favor continuing some sort of a contract with the IPSO to provide law enforcement services for the city, what are your thoughts about addressing perceived shortcomings with the current arrangement? And what are your thoughts about likely continuing cost increases in this arrangement?
Thank you. With regard to law enforcement, we need to return to a city police department. I believe the ongoing cost for such a department would probably be in line with what we're paying now to the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office. With regard to startup cost, it's kind of an open question because a lot of different things could be done in different ways. And I would think we could be looking at as much as $10 million. We could be looking at much less than that, depending on decisions that are made. Also, depending on whether things like if 911 could be broken out or if it could be consolidated, how many vehicles we would need for a city police department, how much room we would need to house a department, and whether they could be put at home in City Hall or if it would require going somewhere else. Also, what we're going to do about a jail. Would we have our own, or will we contract with the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office? So there are a lot of different things that would go into upstart cost, but I think as far as ongoing cost, I think what we're paying now is probably close to what we would need to maintain a force adequate to police the city.
Thank you. Mr. Stansbury, the same question.
First of all, I have discussed with people who have been on the city police force or headed the police force previously before it was disbanded. I have also spoken with people who are now in charge of the system and people who have studied the possibility of bringing back the city police. I am told the figure is between $10 and $12 million. I was told that by experts because you have to start all over again. Cars, people, the detectives, the jail, as Mr. Cruz mentioned, on and on and on. We're paying the sheriff right now $550,000 a month. Were you aware of that? $550,000 a month. And he wants more. There is no penalty in the contract from what I have been told for non-compliance. That was something that surprised me. If the sheriff chose to not do something, there was no penalty. He could just say, I'm not going to do it. and there was no recourse. The city had no recourse. That would be a problem for me. Also, who are we going to be dealing with next June? Is it going to be Sheriff Ackle, or is it going to be someone else? Will they want more? The idea of bringing back the city police is great. My mother served on the city police. She retired from the city police. I enjoyed the people tremendously on the city police. I think it brings a cohesiveness to the city. We don't have $10 to $12 million to start up cash, to start up a police force. So we're almost bound to stay with what we're paying now, possibly phase in over a period of years, a city police. I hope you are aware of some of these facts, because what we pay is a lot of money.
Thank you. Mr. Decourt, same question.
Thank you. I was out in front on this issue. I chaired the Blue Ribbon Commission after I was elected, and after months of meetings, it was concluded that costs would rise, accountability was limited at best, there were no performance indicators, and that city government would be out of control of its own protection. Then this issue went to an election. I'm moving forward, okay? I've taken many steps to address this fluid issue. Remember, we have a 1-year contract with an out button for both parties. So I understand citizens' fears and concerns about law enforcement, and I've taken the following path to work toward a solution. I've had meetings with State Civil Service to look at what it would take to reinitiate a department. I've interviewed police chiefs and officers who are presently working across Acadiana. I've established an organizational chart for a future department. I've done public records requests that I'm getting in now, which show me the budgets of many other police departments in our area. I'm in the process of beginning to develop budgets of the startup cost, as well as the yearly operating cost. That's one of the piece of the puzzle. In another part, I'm ready to negotiate a new contract for sheriff with whoever's here, as long as it addresses all the issues and it's not cost prohibitive. There's a third choice that I'm actually working on. What if we had a hybrid? What if the city brought back traffic and brought back a small patrol? That's something that we could do and still leave narcotics and detectives combined. So what I'm trying to do is flesh out all the options, because you know what? I can't make this decision by myself, and neither can anyone else. I'm half of city government. The city council will be the other half, and we're going to be a team. That's what this is about. This is about changing our attitudes and becoming a team, okay? I'm not going to handle this issue. In the past, it was dictated. It was heavy-handed, and it's a controversial issue. I say that as a team, we'll find the answer. I'm doing the research and coming up with as many options as I can, and I'm open to any other option anybody's got on the table. I do know that law enforcement is our biggest cost, and it is the most important. Public protection, safety is the most important function of our government, and I'll never lose sight of that. We're spending $6 million, and I pledge to all of you to find the best law enforcement solution so that we can get the best bang for our buck. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to go back to our 90-second responses. Mr. Stansbury, what are some specific things the city can do to promote economic development in the city, to encourage the establishment of new businesses or industries, and to promote residential housing development?
First, we need a system set up, a department that promotes the city. A lot of people are unaware of the demographics or the details of what makes up Iberia, how many people there are. A lot of people have no idea that there are 31,000, 32,000 people living in here. I've met with people who own businesses who talk about moving to Karen Crow. I'm like, Karen Crow? New Iberia is the biggest town in this area. We have the money. We have the people. People are hungry for nice places to shop, nice places to eat. I have talked to people about moving to New Iberia, businesses, they're willing, but they didn't know the details of the makeup of New Iberia. And I have promoted New Iberia by doing this. Subdivisions, They're out there. There are places for subdivisions, but they have not been developed because of the lack of the infrastructure and the lack of the people who want to buy the houses. People want small patio homes, and we must address what the people want to move here.
Thank you. Mr. Decourt, same question.
Yeah. Well, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
What are some specific things the city can do to promote economic development within the city, to encourage the establishment of new businesses or industries, and to promote residential housing development?
First thing we can do is streamline all of our government processes. We need to develop incentives for job creators. We've got to foster further development of our historic core. We've got to set up an economic development team right from the beginning that helps us to become more developer friendly. I've been meeting with developers from Lafayette, talking to them. This is something that I've done, it's my living. So certainly I can, relate to these people. We've been looking at, why subdivisions aren't coming here, why people aren't here, what can we do to be more developer friendly and attract those businesses. I want to set up a volunteer database of property owners. We have a lot of vacant property in town. I would like to set a database up of people who are willing to where we can market that property. If you think about it, we're at a good elevation. We've had some flooding, but not what we had in our neighboring communities. Our construction costs are cheaper, up to 10 points from when you just travel to Lafayette. Our real estate cost, you can acquire property here cheaper. Yes, it's because we're in a downturn, but let's take advantage of it. It's not negative, it's not naive to think when things are bad that we can that they can become better. You know what it is? It's leadership, and that's what we need. So I think that if we market ourselves and market these opportunities of our lower cost, of our lower construction costs, meet those developers' needs, and address their concerns, I think we can grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, same question.
Thank you. With regard to economic development, let's look at people who have successfully developed in New Iberia and what they did or what they found here. Walmart is on its 4th shopping center in New Iberia, and the one it's in right now is very successful. The 2 that it left from stores that it built previously are both doing well. We have businesses here that I wouldn't have guessed would be in New Iberia, like a Cane's or a Starbucks, and they're doing very well. So we need to go back, talk to these people, find out what it is that attracted them to New Iberia. But there are a number of other things. We go back to building permits. We need to get that straightened out so that people want to do business, they want to build in New Iberia. We look at parks. I'm hearing that there are a lot of things we could do with parks that wouldn't cost any more money. It's just a matter of listening to people who want to use the parks and what they're expecting, and it's not being provided by the city. It's not even being addressed. We can also look at, on the state level, enterprise zones, on the federal level, empowerment zones to get people back to work. We could take a new look at gambling, which could bring money into town. It could also keep people here who want to play, who would not have to leave and go to another parish in order to spend their money. They'd be very happy to do it here in New Iberia, and I realize that would take a parish-wide vote, but it's been 20 years since we looked at that, and I think it's time to look at it again.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll start with Mr. Decourt. We hear a lot of talk about homeowners and businesses leaving New Iberia to relocate to nearby communities, where it is said there are more housing options, more opportunities for local businesses to grow and prosper. As mayor, you're often the voice of a city. What would you say are the positive attributes New Iberia has right now, and why should locals stay or outsiders relocate here? And what can the city do, what should the city do to improve the people's perception of New Iberia?
We've got to promote. Same thing I have to do in my business. People don't come and find you to build $1 million job. You got to go and find them many, many times. So that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to promote our community. We're going to have to get out there and show and put the best face we can and change people's attitudes. I do think that through economic development zones, I think through cluster development, which is a proven way to develop property, I think partnering with IDF. I've already had meetings with IDF to bring in some incentives to, there are no incentives right now. There's not one incentive. If you have a new business coming to our community, we can offer you nothing. We have not one incentive. I think that bringing incentives to our community to help us market and to get people interested in coming here is key. I also think that as I've been meeting with developers, we do need our perception, our first upfront. Like I said, you have one chance to make a good impression, a good first impression. I think that we need to develop a packet and a committee that comes together, helps us become more developer friendly, and that we have something to sell. When you look at the Buxton study that was done years back. It showed how much money bled to Lafayette. It showed how many businesses that, those opportunities are here to start a business here. If we start businesses here, we get people to live here. And I think that that's key. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, same question.
We found out, to other people's detriment, that we're higher and drier than other places near here, and that's certainly something we should promote. With regard to housing, there are a lot of empty units, and I'm finding that out walking the city, going around the different neighborhoods. There's a lot of vacant commercial property. So we find a way to have this redeveloped. Also, though, we need to have incentive powers that the city has, that the mayor has. And I think the reason, I've heard stories, businesses have gone to the mayor, and probably the mayor before her, asked for help, and the answer has been, there's nothing we can do. So if we need to change the laws, if we need to write new ordinances in order to give the ability to the mayor or the city council to bend some of the rules, just consider that empty buildings are not going to bring anything into the city. If we delay taxes or don't collect taxes on a business that's not here, what difference does it make? So we may need to have some incentives for existing businesses and for new people who want to come into town.
Thank you. Mr. Stansbury, same question.
First of all, our downtown, I'm not sure if you know, has been recognized as one of the top 100 most beautiful downtowns in the United States. Original. A lot of it is original. It's very, very unique. We need to advertise New Iberia. We need to promote New Iberia. We need to put it in magazines like Southern Living. We need to ask magazines to come in and look at us, invite people here. Try to get snowbirds, people from the north to move down here. It's extremely affordable to buy a house. The property taxes are low. The people are great. The economy is good, although it could be better. There are many positive things about New Iberia to sell. We just have to promote the idea. Again, low property taxes. Property is very affordable. It's a great place to live, great place to retire. The heritage.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll start with Mr. Cruz. Tell us what you think will be the city's financial situation for the next 4 years. Where might the expense reductions be made? What are possible areas to increase revenues? Please try to offer some specifics. For example, if you think we can get some grants for the city, please offer some specifics of what sort of grants these might be.
We are very reliant on sales taxes in New Iberia, and sales taxes aren't growing, and they're not going to grow when the economy is in a downturn. I know people don't like property taxes. I don't like them. I really can't think of a tax I like, even voluntary taxes. But if we could pay down the debt, if we keep the property tax where it is, the same millages, but move some of what we're paying for in sales taxes into the property tax, in this 45% of the property tax that is now debt or debt service, then we could actually have a more stable tax base without having to raise taxes. This would take time. Until there's an improvement in the economy, we're going to be looking at very tight situation. So any grants that would be available, and perhaps there would be grants available to start up a police department. That's something we need to look at. Also, we need to have our own people in City Hall writing grant requests. We don't need to join a club with Lafayette or with other parishes to be looking for grants. This is part of doing business nowadays. Although I'm a libertarian, I'm a practical libertarian. If somebody's willing to give us free money, I'm willing to take it.
Thank you. Mr. Stansbury, same question.
Grants are a very good idea. We have a historic downtown. We can get grants for downtown buildings that exist that are empty, because many of them are empty. Have you looked at them? It would be a wonderful idea to raise property taxes that wouldn't go over, it would go over like a lead balloon. I foresee in the next 4 years, with the idea of growing New Iberia, a growth, a spurt, some movement back to the area by advertising, putting out the news, what is great about New Iberia, promote the city, and one of the SLCC is one of the most forgotten things about New Iberia. We have a junior college here. And so, like I had to go to USL and commute, you don't have to do that anymore. We have a junior college here. I taught there. It's a wonderful college. And so things do it. We have an airport. They're fixing to build a terminal. We're fixing to have flights coming in and out, Dallas, Houston, that area. And we have the port, which is growing and continues to grow.
Thank you. Mr. Decourt, same
Thank you.
question.
Yes, if I'm blessed to get these opportunities to take on these challenges, first thing I'm going to do is call for an audit so that we all know where we start. We all start on an even keel and we know exactly where our finances are. I do agree with my competitors, grant writing is certainly an area that I want to pursue. I've already met with 4 different grant writers, a couple of them who make their living writing grants, and talked to them about writing grants, and they of course would collect those fees. I do want to eventually have an in-house person, but I will start with these 4 consultants because it will be cheaper to get started with them and develop a grant program, because for a community our size, we really should have an in-house grant writer. So I want to work toward that, but I'll start with these consultants. I do agree, look, I've sunk a lot of my own money and my business is operated in our historic core. We've got a great asset there. We need to promote. Tourism has to be a bigger part of our future promise. It has to be. When you look at the Shadows, the museum, Avery Island, Jefferson, we have so many historic sites and so many unique shops and restaurants and people who are our local business people who are committed. Our best asset is our people. Don't ever forget that. It's your neighbors, it's your friends, it's the people you know, it's the people that chose to live here and that are lifers just like most of us that aren't leaving, So we have to pull together to improve our lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question will start with Mr. Stansbury. The recent flooding in the city, the parish, and around South Louisiana has lots of residents concerned about drainage issues. Sure, the recent flooding was caused by what is being called the 1,000-year storm, but we see Main Street, Jefferson Terrace, and plenty of other streets covered by water after our more routine heavy rains. What are some specifics the city should do to address drainage?
First of all, we've had this problem since I've been alive. We've all experienced St. Peter Street flooding. We've all experienced Jefferson Terrace. Before, Jefferson Terrace was 2 feet above New Iberia Senior High. You went down to go into the parking lot. Now you're below. So somebody boo-booed down on that deal. Where it floods, we almost can't stop where it floods. How do you know exactly where it's going to flood? One area may get 12 inches, one area may get 8 inches. We know where the basic problems are. They've never been addressed. Jefferson Terrace has never been addressed. St. Peter Street. We need more drains. I mean, is it not that simple that we need more drains to move the water out? And where they would go? I don't think there needs to be a study. I just think we need a group of citizens to come and say, my street floods, and you know exactly where the flooding is, because it's happened to you probably. And so we just need more drains and how to get rid of the water.
Thank you. Mr. Decourt, same question.
It's all about the outfalls. It's all about where our city drains to. It's more than just adding drains, it's figuring out where it's going. We know where it's going. It's going all over the parish. So basically, we're going to have to network with the parish. I know that they're putting together a master plan on drainage, and we have one, but I think that they need to be some cohesion there, because all of the city drains out into the parish. Therefore, we've got to work together. There are many areas, as we develop, these problems will continue. I put retention ponds and detention ponds on all of my construction projects. We have many older developments that didn't call for those. So the more concrete you have, the more you take up the ground, the more the water's not absorbed, and it's got to go somewhere. So it's really, we have older pipes, we have undersized pipes in many areas. We have to address that. But the big thing is to partner with the parish and look at where our drainage is going. It's all going their way. So we're going to have to work together and come up with a plan that is cohesive and that gives us some opportunity to correct some of the older issues. But as we grow and develop, as we all come together with everything we've said and make this community what it needs to be and what we want it to be, drainage isn't going away. We are fortunate that we're at a good elevation. We survived much better than many communities. Some of those people, I'd like them to come home. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, same question.
With regard to flooding, of course, we need to coordinate with the parish. A friend of mine explained what goes on with most city projects. It's like a game of ping pong between the city and the parish. And it's a friendly game, but it's the city has to check with the parish has to check with the city. You have to check with CLECO. You have to check with other utilities. There's a lot of back and forth. If we could find a way to give the authority to the city, which I would prefer, or to give the authority to the parish to complete these projects, it would probably make them a lot easier, because you wouldn't have to have so much coordination and back and forth. Certainly, storm sewers can be cleaned, canals and ditches can be cleaned and rid of obstructions. This should be done on a regular basis. And then with regard to fixing the infrastructure problems, because there are some that are persistent, come up with a priority list. Budget a little bit of money, attack one or two a year. And then over time, some of these areas where we have persistent drainage problems would go away, and we could whittle the list down over time.
Thank you. For our final question, we'll start with Mr. Decourt. What is your position on consolidation of services with Iberia Parish government as a way to perhaps create efficiencies to stretch limited city tax dollars? What departments would or would not be candidates for consolidation with the parish, and why?
I feel that smaller, decentralized government addresses the needs of its citizens better. I think consolidation is costly, sometimes controversial, and sometimes complicated. And there's no guarantee you're going to save money. But there is a proven alternative. We continue to use joint venture and intergovernmental agreements to work together. And they're doing it now. We need to increase that. I think that by increasing those intergovernmental agreements, we're going to pick up efficiencies. We're going to avoid duplication where possible. But what I never want to do, I never want to weaken my city government. I never want to weaken your representation. And I never want to do anything that threatens our identity as a community. And that's important to me. And it should be important to all of you. All of these issues that we talk about are all community issues. But there's no reason that we can't be working together. There's no reason that many areas of our government can't come to an agreement through an intergovernmental agreement or a joint venture and pull together. The permit office is one that I know has been kicked around, that the city would actually take over and do the permit process for the entire parish. That's something that I would love to explore. We have many issues to get to that point. Consolidation did not save money in Lafayette. I had the good fortune to meet with Joey Durrell on that on many occasions, but that doesn't mean we can't work together. We're all one people, and we've got to find a way to pull together. And in these economic times, I want to save money wherever I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, same question.
Thank you. With regard to consolidation, most of the cities where consolidation has worked, most of the parishes have one extremely large city and perhaps some smaller villages or towns in that area. In Iberia, New Iberia only makes up about 42% of the population of the parish. We're not really a good candidate to have consolidated government unless the people of New Iberia are willing to let people in the parish dictate to us, unless we're willing to have underrepresentation in government and to have people who are outside of New Iberia making decisions for us. And I would say, just look at what happened, and I don't think we looked at it as a consolidation issue, but look what happened when we put out for bid and contracted with the sheriff's office to provide policing. This was actually a first step in consolidated government. It hasn't worked, and the situation is such that if we had the best sheriff, if we had the best sheriff's department, we still wouldn't know, and I'm not sure even the chief financial officer for the sheriff's office would know how much does it really cost to police the city of New Iberia. Because if there's an issue in a close by community, we don't expect that there are going to be 10 units in New Iberia. They're going to go to Coteau if there's a bad problem there, or to Jeanerette.
Thank you. Mr. Stansbury, same question.
First of all, it would be up to the voters whether we would consolidate. If you remember the turmoil that went on in Lafayette for years before consolidation occurred. So the voters would have to decide. If they did decide, then we would follow the ordinances and rules that would be set up. It would save money because we would stop doubling and have parish doing one thing, city doing the same thing. That may save money. Working together is the key. We have to stop worrying about what goes on in the parish and what goes on in the city and worry about what goes on in Iberia Parish, New Iberia. We're all together. We're all in this game together. And so together we could do it if the citizens wanted consolidation. It can be done, but it would be up to the voters to decide.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of our candidates tonight. This concludes tonight's forum for Mayor of City of New Iberia and our series of forums for this year. We certainly appreciate the time and effort put forth by the candidates here tonight. How about a round of applause?